Juice, you talked about it, right? And when we were talking about this Dodgers series coming up, the perfect time for Belly is now. And I mean, it might not have been every game, but he had a big moment every single game of this series that helped the Cubs win 2 out of 3.
Yeah, Belly go, we go, right? I mean, I think that when
Yeah.
he's good, that middle of the lineup looks really good. Now with Seiya Suzuki back, with the defensive lineup that they have in that outfield, you have guys who are accurate to all the bases. You have guys with good arms, all good throwing arms out there. That lefty power is something that the Cubs for a long time haven't had. They thought they were going to get it with Jason Hayward. They never did. And how awesome was that robbing of the home run against Hayward as well? I picked him for my fly the W, and it's because I watched so much of the game on Wednesday, and he looked so comfortable at the plate. Um, Dinger's talked about it too, how he's seeing a lot of contact inside the zone and how he needed to be more aggressive, and he's doing that. I mean, I thought that Jake brought up an awesome point that, when he was getting pitches inside the zone, he was putting the bat on him. And a lot of the Cubs over the course of this beginning of the season in April here have done that. They've put the bat on the ball. The Cubs don't normally, leave players or at least not put it in play. That's the way the lineup is kind of constructed. But you have to see him turn on that was just awesome to see, because that lefty power, like I said, is so important in a lineup. And he kind of bridges that no man land, right? We were talking about it early on in the season, like with some of the variations of this lineup, the bottom can look really bad. Guys like, and I'm not throwing shade at like Yan Gomes. He had a great series, but I mean, let's face it, like career models show that he's a below average hitter. You don't have sluggers at the catching slots. And a lot of times you end up playing Hosmer, who he's been okay. He's been probably a little bit more lucky than good, but let's just, call a spade a spade. He's a guy on a $750,000 contract. So I look at this lineup, and when Belly goes, this Cubs team becomes so much more deadly because they have guys in front of them that get on base, put the bat on the ball, create havoc. And his job on this team is to just provide power, just be that threat. Because even when he's not, getting hits or being, it's a professional hitter in the order that makes you work more than the guys that are at 7, 8, 9 for most of the time for these lineup variations that David Ross has to work with. So when I look at Belly, it's for a lot of this year, it's Belly go, we go. And that's because he's going to be trusted to single in or double in or clear the bases with guys like Seiya Suzuki who are working walks in front of him. And I'll tell you right now, I know we're talking about Belly, but we're talking about the hitters. But Patrick Wisdom, I gave that guy so much shit for so many years. But imagine where the Cubs are at right now, this early in the season, without his start. Because he's like third or fourth in home runs. He's slugging, and he's actually putting the bat on the ball more often and striking out way less than he did in the past. So it's interesting to like play that eat my words card. But in the case of the Cubs, I will eat my words on Patrick Wisdom as long as he can continue this success, because he's another one of those bats that you're like, man, he's the batter's version, in my opinion, of Mark Leiter Jr. right now, overperforming expectation, and that you're going to need that day in and day out, because that third base position is up for grabs, and the quicker someone can solidify it, I think the quicker we get to these names like Morel, who probably provide more wins above replacement than what's on the bench right now. Because if he can solidify that, then you have the comfortability to say, Christopher Morel, you're going to move around and you're going to spell people out. And that's when I think that there's a cemented role for Christopher Morel at this point, because they want him to play every day. But if you have cemented slots within this lineup, I think it makes it easier for David Ross to go, I can play this guy today and you can play here, opposed to when you have just a mess of bench guys that are versatile. You can't really bring that up again because you're trying to figure out what can stay and what needs to go. And that's where I think the roster kind of moves back to maybe the best 25. And I think that's eventually how we get there is guys like Belly and Patrick Wisdom just cementing positions. That way it gives a clear-cut, idea of where he can move Christopher Morel around the lineup.